Hey, welcome to episode 249 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. It's fun being so close to episode 250, and it makes me think like when I started my career as a public speaker with a speech impediment or and then later on a podcast, it didn't seem like I had any script to follow. It seemed like I, along with the people helping me, were inventing it as we went, and that can be kind of scary. Why do I mention this? Because my guest today has invented this amazing life for himself, where he contributes to so many different people in a great many ways. But he didn't follow a script. He um he created it. Anyway, I'll tell you more about this amazing man in a sec, but first, but for, but first, that was not smooth in the least. Okay, now
today's guest, Scott Ehrisman.
Scott Ehrisman is a multi-talented artist, a community activist, community builder, a friend to a great many people, and an all-around kind person. He's truly committed to doing the things that interest and excite him. He's had 20 different jobs, fueled by a drive to constantly better himself through learning new things and challenging himself. This drive led him to lose 130 pounds over the course of the last 2 years. A personal commitment to himself found him commuting everywhere by bike last winter, sans for inhospitable days. And keep in mind, Sioux Falls, South Dakota winters are windy, snowy, icy, and bitterly cold. I say that with a grimace because we're recording this in September, and winter is definitely coming. Scott's commitment to making his convictions actionable is astonishing. A few years back, he took 6 months off of work to recharge, develop new fascinations, and refocus on what he wanted in life. After researching and dreaming about starting a pedicab business for a decade, he took a leap this summer and started Downtown Rickshaw in downtown Sioux Falls. Please welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast, Scott Ashman. Ashman?
Yes, Ehrisman.
Ehrisman.
Man, yep. Yeah, it's for a while I was called Aerosmith. People would call me Aerosmith. I was in jury duty one time, and the judge said they dismissed me. I've never had to serve on a jury. I always get dismissed. There's several reasons why, but she said, "You're dismissed, Mr. Chrisman," and I didn't correct her. I just walked out.
Mr. What?
She said, "You're dismissed." I was on jury duty, and she dismissed me, and she said, "You're dismissed, Mr. Chrisman." And I didn't correct.
How did she come up with that?
I don't know. She must have saw the E as a C. So she called me Chrisman instead of Ehrisman. And I just, okay, and I walked out. I didn't correct her. Yeah. So it's a Swiss name, but it's of our family moved around a lot because there was a lot of wars in Germany and Russia and that. So my dad's side of the family is German, Russian, Swiss, and so the name is Swiss. And the Ehrisman family name actually has a museum in Japan. And there was an Ehrisman from Switzerland who was a silk trader. And so he lived in, I always say the name of the town wrong. I think it's called Yokohama. Is it like the largest city in Japan? Well, they built a house when they were silk traders. And I think in the 40s, 1940s, they built a house. And before that, nobody in that city had built a house in the Western style or American style or European style. All the houses were built in Japanese style. So the house was the first house in the city that was built in the Western style. So it was kind of controversial at the time. So the Japanese people made a museum out of it. And it's called the Ehrisman House. And it's over in Japan. And I told my brother that we plan to go visit it someday because that would be kind of cool.
Oh, that'd be very cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I got off on a rant on that. It's a fun story. My brother found the museum just Googling, like trying to find old relatives or something, and he found this museum, and I was like shocked by it.
I mean, how often does that happen? Like, you're Googling, you're researching family history, and you find a whole museum there.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's pretty crazy, and there is only one other Scott Ehrisman that spells it identical to me. His middle name is different, and he lives out in. He's a farmer, and he's about my age. He's a little bit older than me, and he's a farmer in, I think, Vermont or Connecticut. He's a hog farmer, and I got a hold of him on Facebook, and this was the craziest thing. His brother's name is the same as mine.
What?
What are the chances?
What in the world?
We were kind of astonished by it. We've only messaged a few times, but I thought that was kind of neat, to find a guy that had the only other person in the United States that I have found that has the identical name as me, and he has a brother with the same name as mine. So it was we got a good laugh out of that. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Speaking of history, where were you born?
I was born in Whiting, Iowa. No, I always get that. I was born in Ottawa, Iowa. We lived in Whiting. Whiting was a very small town. You will see a sign for Whiting if you drive to Council Bluffs or Omaha. It's along the interstate in Iowa. When you're going on I-9, you'll see a sign.
When did you move to
My parents got a divorce before I was in kindergarten, and then we moved to Scotland, South Dakota, to live with my grandparents for about a year. And then my mom wanted to go to school, because she was single mom. And so she went to school at Mitchell Votech. So we moved to Mitchell, and she went to school and got a job there. And then in 4th grade, my mom got remarried to my stepfather, and he had a farm in Parkston. And so we moved there. So I was about 4th grade. I wouldn't know what age that would be. What, 8, 9, something like that.
So how big of a town is Parkston?
I thought the last time I visited my mom, I looked at the population sign and it said something like 3,500. And it's actually one of the bigger small towns in South Dakota. And I know that sounds crazy because 3,500 people. I mean, that lives in a neighborhood in Sioux Falls, But it's on 2 highways. It intersects on 2 highways, and they have a manufacturing plant there. So, and the regional hospital, Avera, is there. So it's a hub. So a lot of the small towns around Parkston come to Parkston or Mitchell. So it's 20 miles south of Mitchell on
So,
37 is that. I don't know what that. Yeah, 37. So yeah, it's a nice little community. They actually have outdoor concerts on Thursday nights. They have a beautiful amphitheater in the park. Their park is really nice. They have probably one of the best city parks for a small town in South Dakota. They take really good care of it, and the community
mm,
supports it. And they're in the running to get a Levitt grant next year. So
no way.
to vote for,
Uh,
yeah, you can vote for them on the Levitt website, and they're going to get a Levitt grant. If they get awarded the Levitt grant, there's 100 towns in the running. They would get $28,000 a year for 3 years for entertainment. So I think that's awesome. My mom goes to the concerts. My stepdad passed away a couple years ago, and my mom still lives in Parkston. She's retired, and she goes to the concerts. She says it's awesome. It's the whole community shows up, and it's just a big community gathering every Thursday night in the park. I think that's great that a small town like that can provide something like that to people, where they don't have to drive to Sioux Falls to see a Levitt show. That's
you,
kind
you sound very positive about Paxton. What inspired you? How did you know you didn't want to spend your life in a small town?
of. I am really into music and art. That is like
Mm,
my thing that makes me happy, and you can't get that in a small town. And as much as small towns might want to say that they have cultural influences and other things, they really don't. And 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 I know that opportunities in art and to see bands and to go to concerts and stuff, then you live in a small town, you're going to be traveling a lot. So I never aspired to live in a small town. And I've actually told my friends when I retire, I'm selling every damn thing I have, and I'm buying a hybrid camper van, and that's where I'm going to live until I die. So I'm not a person that likes to sit around, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I like to travel. I like to see things. I like to do things. And in a small town, things are a little bit slower, so to speak.
so you knew early on that the farming life was not for you.
um, Farm work, and I know we've talked about this before, Jason, is extremely hard work. And the other thing about farm work is it's every day. You don't get a break. And if you do take a vacation or a break, we never took a vacation because we couldn't. You have a neighbor come over and do your chores. You have 4 hours of chores every day. So even if you decide, like on a Sunday, we're not gonna do any farm work today, you still have to do 4 hours of chores. 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. You got to feed the animals, clean the pens, all that stuff. It's a constant work. Farming is constant work. And if you like constant work and you like hard work, then you love farming. But
Mm.
it's not cut out for everybody, and it's not as glamorous. I know some people think, "Oh, it's so cool, you're farming the land and everything." It's extremely hard work, and farmers are gambling all the time. It's just a big gamble. They put a crop in the field and hope to get something from it. So farming never really interested me, and I didn't get along with my stepfather very well. So my sophomore year of high school, I decided to move to Seattle to live with my dad. And I planned on graduating out there and going to the Art Institute for Interior Design. But when I got to my senior, I was sophomore and junior in a suburb of Seattle, in Everett, it's called. It's where the largest Boeing plant is in Everett. So there's
Interesting.
work at Boeing in the town. So it's a company town, I call it. But huge high school, 1,500 students, 3 grades, so 500 kids per class. I told somebody I went to school there for 2 years, and I met a new person every single day at the school.
That's a great line.
Hey, so well, when I first started going there, it was culture shock. I moved there in a January, so I didn't move there at the beginning of my sophomore year. It was kind of in the middle of my sophomore year that I moved there.
And did you fly or how did you get there?
Oh, I flew out there, and then
Okay.
but it's really rainy in the winter, and so it was kind of a culture shock at first, but once I started meeting people in high school, they actually all gave me a nickname. My nickname out there in high school was Pig Farmer, and it was great. The high school, I told people I moved back my senior year to live with my mom and stepdad again because the credit system in Washington State is different than South Dakota. And I would have had to take summer classes in between my junior and senior year to have all the credits to graduate my senior year out there. So I was like, oh, this is a huge headache. So I just moved back. But I've told people those 2 years I lived out there were not only probably the best years of my life when I was young, but the culture and diversity and everything else. I mean, I got to tell you, Jason, before I moved out there, I had never known a gay person. I had never known a black person. I didn't know any Asian people. You know, the Seattle area is huge Asian population. I think it's 30 or 40%. And I maybe not that high, but it's a high. So I made all these friends from all these different groups of people, whether they were a minority or they were gay or they were into punk rock or there was a lot of gangs. They called them posses. I was friends with some of those people. It was always good to be kind of friends with the gangs because you didn't want to piss them off. and so I was kind of friends with some of the gang members. I wouldn't say friends, associates. They leave you alone, you leave them alone, kind of thing. There was probably 5-6 gangs in the school, active gangs that people knew about, and I just learned a lot about society. I tell people, if you want to live your life in South Dakota and rural and laid back, I'm all for it. That's what you want to do. But I always tell people, you really need to live in a big city for a year or two and just get a feel of how people live in an urban environment opposed to a rural environment. It's a lot different. And I actually believe people in the city are more understanding. And the one thing about people in the city too is they're not passive aggressive like a lot of rural people are. So it's a different culture completely than South Dakota.
So Scott, I mean, so many of us dream of taking a big step in our life and going beyond what we know, but then so many times we humans convince ourselves. We come up with hundreds of reasons just to stay put, just to do the same thing, just to.
Mm-hmm. My mom does the same thing every day. I know, and it drives me and my brother crazy because we encourage her to go on trips. It's not that she's destitute; she has the money to do it, and she just doesn't want to do it. But people set in their ways,
So how did you as a sophomore in high school, how did you find the the courage or the ambition, or what's the right word, to go from a town of 3,500 to the Seattle area? How did you do it?
It was, like I said, it was really hard at first. My dad and, well, she's my stepmom now, but she was my dad's girlfriend at the time. lived with us, and what was I going to say about that? They knew I was depressed. They knew that I was struggling because I had left a life that I've been living my whole life and didn't know anybody. You know, they take you to school for your first day and they have a couple of kids that'll walk you around, but you don't actually meet anybody. You have to do that on your own. So I just started talking to people in the lunchroom. And you got to understand, the lunchroom in this school was probably the size of a football field. So they had three different lunch periods, and you had to pick one. And your lunch period was only 20 minutes. So you were in and out. So I would just start talking to people at lunch. And it was funny. Some of my first friends were some Vietnamese and Cambodian kids from my shop class. And I became good friends with this one kid named Deanne, and he lived with his brothers and his grandma. And they'd invite me over all the time for food and conversation. You know, they only had one rule. You had to take your shoes off at the front door, you know, because that's an Asian culture thing. But I'm the kind of person, I got to have interaction with other people or I'll go bonkers, you know? So I love living by myself. This is my own time when I'm in my home, but I got to be around people. So I just started making friends and met my best friend out there. We still talk. He lives in Alaska now, but it's for 20 years. But I met my best friend when I was out there, my high school best friend, Jeremy, and we got into all kinds of fun things. We'd go to different parties. You know, in high school, there's parties everywhere, especially in a big city. You know, if you didn't know how to get to a party on the weekend in a big city in high school, you weren't very smart or you weren't popular. I was in weightlifting class and art class with the football team. And they're big dudes because this is a big high school and they had a really good football team. And I befriended all the football players and they started inviting me to their parties, which were lame, you know. And then they had me do their art project because none of them are artistic, or at least they don't think they are. And I did two, of course, this is cheating, obviously. I did 2 art projects and my own art project for our final art project for the class. And 2 of the football players had me do theirs. And I told them, I said, I'll do them, but you got to come up with the idea. And the one guy came up with an egg. We had to do paper mache sculptures. So he came up with an egg with a sperm around it. And it was probably 3 foot in diameter. And I said, hey, that's kind of a cool idea. So I built that for him. He got an A on it. And the other guy wanted me to build like this box thing. He got like a B on it. And then I submitted an atomic explosion. It was an atomic explosion. So I built an atomic explosion out of paper mache. Really cool. I got a C. And the teacher told me it's because she knew I was talented, but I wasn't applying myself. And I just laughed about it because I told my dad that I did this because those kids both paid me $50 to do their project. And my dad thought it was funny. And I said, yeah, I got 3 grades. I got an A, a B, and a C.
And you got the C on you and the one you submitted.
Yeah.
So how did you get interested in being in art? Well,
I started drawing when I was a little kid. My mom has drawings. You know, she won't give me any of the stuff. It bothers me. And she won't give me photos. She won't give me any of my old drawings. She said I can have them when she dies. Okay, whatever. But she has drawings that I did when I was 3 and 4 years old. And I was drawing animals at 4 years old with pencil. And you could tell what animal it was. It wasn't like a stick figure. I was drawing like rabbits and dogs, and so they knew I had a talent. And my grandparents, my mom's parents, encouraged it a lot. My grandma especially. So I was really into kind of comic books and stuff. Just when you're a young kid, you just read silly comic books. And so I started drawing comics and stuff. And my grandma was encouraging me to do it. So I'd draw funny comic books for her. And and my dad always really encouraged it. And he really did want me to go to the Art Institute. I wish I did. I like interior design, actually. I don't really talk about it with people, but I wanted to be an architect when I was probably a freshman in high school. And the family on my mom's side, actually, I think he's my grandpa Carl, which is my mom's dad. He's his second cousin. And he worked for Spitznagel here in town in the 50s. And he was kind of their illustrator. That was his main focus. But anyway, long story short, I had an architect in the family, went to Harvard, all that stuff, very well known. So I wanted to do that, but my calculus and algebra and those skills weren't very good. And I knew that I would have had to do a lot of tutoring to get my math skills up. So I decided interior design would maybe be a different way to go. But then ultimately I went to Southeast Tech here in Sioux Falls and became a graphic designer. But I went for communications. So I have a 2-year degree in communications. So that's printing, graphic design, anything that goes along with that. But yeah, I have regrets about certain things I wanted to do. I think when I was a senior in high school, my mom encouraged me to go to Southeast Tech to be a graphic designer, and I didn't really want to do it. I wanted to go to Augustana, and our church I went to a Lutheran church, and they would give $1,000 a year to anybody who would go to a Protestant college like Augustana. So I would have got a $4,000 scholarship, but it was expensive. And my parents didn't want to pay for anything. I had to get loans for everything. So I wanted to go for art at Augie. But the ironic part about all that, years later, I met Carl Grupp. And if people don't know who Carl Grupp was, he was an institution at Augustana. He was the head of the art department. And
will you describe Carl Grupp a little bit for people?
I know you know him. He died probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I think he was head of the art department at Augustana for 30 years, but don't quote me on that. I'd have to look that up. But he'd been there a long time, and incredible guy. He looked like Jerry Garcia. He's talking like this. Hey, how's it going there? And just a big, lovable bear. And I got to meet him and get to know him through the local arts thing, because Carl was always at those openings when he was in better health. And so I got to know him, and so I got to know a lot of the students that went there, and some of them worked at Black Sheep Coffee. And so I never went to Augie for art, but I tell people I feel like I did, because I knew a lot of the art students, and I knew Carl and some of the other, I know Scott, one of the other professors there. So, yeah, I do regret it. I wish I would have went to art school. I probably would have struggled more. But I wanted to get a minor in sociology too, and teach art history with an emphasis on sociology and the impact art history has on culture. I mean, you just look at Renaissance or the Baroque period of art and the amazing transformation of society through an art movement. And so that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't, And, my friends have said, you should just go back to school for art. And I've thought about it, take a few semesters, some painting courses and stuff. I'm self-taught, so I'm always trying to find new ways to do things. I'm a big fan of collage art. Andy Warhol is my favorite artist of all time. And it's not because of his art, it's because of all the other things he did. in transforming pop culture and fashion and music. I mean, he created the entire New York punk rock scene. So I love Warhol, Picasso, Van Gogh. So I take a lot of influences from them. And I'd have to say Rauschenberg is probably one of my favorite American artists for collage and that. And I've seen a lot of his work in different museums. He's amazing. Probably one of the greatest collage artists and, mixed media artists. I mean, his stuff, some of his stuff he did on the Kennedys is just amazing work. But yeah, I do I think college is for everybody? No, absolutely not. And there is many successful artists in this world that never took a single class. So I don't know. I just like to be around that. Anytime I travel, the first thing I do is find out which fine art museums are in that town, and I make a special effort to go and to block at least 3 to 4 hours in a museum. There's nothing more irritating than traveling with people, telling them that you want to go to the MMA or whatever, and then you get there and they're like, "So we're gonna be done in like 45 minutes?" And I'm like, "No, this is the MMA. We're gonna be here for 3 to 4 hours." And they're like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Have you looked at the walls? They're covered in amazing paintings, and I'm gonna look at every single one of them." And so my friends usually leave me at the museum. They usually last 20 to 40 minutes, and then I'm there for 3 hours,
So,
So
so on one hand, part of your wish is you had gone to college and gotten that education. What would you say has been, on the other hand, what has been the advantages to you of not going to college, of being more self-taught?
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because while I don't, while the only thing I can really claim to be a professional at is graphic design because I actually do have a degree in it and I've done it for 30 years. I still do freelance, even though I don't work for somebody. That's the only thing that I would ever tell people that I was a professional at is graphic design. Other than that, everything I've done is on the job training, and I've always liked learning new things. And
Where where
after
where do you where do you think the like of learning new things comes from?
when I was younger, Jason, it came out of necessity to feed myself. I've been single my whole life. I've lived by myself I've had my house for 23 years and I lived by myself for 10 years before that. So, no. I lived by myself for 5 years. So I've been living by myself for almost 30 years. Um, so I've always had to support myself. My family has never given me a penny. Um, my grandparents passed my grandpa passed a few years ago. I did get a little inheritance, but I've never gotten a penny from my parents. So I struggled a lot in Sioux Falls. It's a low wage town. If you're a minion, if you're a professional, you do well. But if you're not, you kind of struggle. So I started doing a lot of different jobs. I've always had part-time jobs on top of full-time jobs. So I'd always experiment with my part-time jobs and do different things. I get bored really easily too. That's why I can't last at a job for very long. A lot of times it had nothing to do with the employer. It might have to do with the fact that I'm just bored. I want to try something else. So, I mean, that's why I did radio DJing. I was the lead usher at the Pavilion when it opened. I just tried different things. And every time I'd get a different part-time job, I was like, yeah, this is fun. And I learned something new. And now that I'm at the age I am now, I look back on it and I go, I did all these different jobs out of necessity. But in reality, I'm glad I did because I learned so much. I mean, so many things I can do myself that I just amazed that sometimes my friends that are close to my age, and the things that they'll pay for, a service. And I'd be like, why don't you just call me? I would have come over and done that in 20 minutes. Well, how? Well, you just pull this part and do this and do this. So there's a lot of people who are very dependent on service people. And I guess if you have the money, that's fine. You want to help out a contractor and people or whatever. But to people who don't have money, you got to do that shit on your own, So, I'm glad I learned a lot of stuff. I mean, there's every day where, I'm doing something and my experience on other jobs kicks into gear. And if there's something I learned from another job, that's the other thing about jobs. Most jobs are very similar. Most jobs are not different. Electrician and a plumber, of course, a plumber works with water and an electrician works with electricity, but their jobs really aren't that different. They're both are in the trenches doing that manual labor, putting things together. It's easy to transition from different jobs. I think it is. The more you know. I mean, I know people that have been in the same job for 30 years and they don't know anything. They only know their job. That's it. And it's sad. I feel bad for those people sometimes. Yeah, they got great retirement and great benefits. But when they retire, they're going to be like, what did I do with my life? I did the same thing for 30 years. Now I'm retired. What am I going to do now? It's like my mom. She worked for probably 4 different people in her life, but she was a bookkeeper. And that's all an accountant, a company accountant, internal accountant. And that's all my mom did her whole life, after she graduated from Mitchell Votech for, accounting and bookkeeping and stuff like that. So some people that's just what they do. But I'm not that way. I got to be doing different things,
Job interviews intimidate a lot of people. What tips do you have for going into a job interview with confidence?
I always tell people the pre-planning is the most important. Prepare a couple days in advance. Get your clothes ready. Put your clothes on. Get a haircut. Clean your glasses if you wear glasses. I know that sounds crazy. Here's another thing that I learned from reading a story about a Disney executive. Clean your car. This Disney executive, when he would interview people, he would specifically have them park in this certain spot in front of the offices so he could see their car. And then he would come out of the office when they got there and he'd be like, we got to go to another building for an interview. Can you give me a ride in your car? And he said the interior of someone's car tells a lot about them. And so I always tell people, clean your car, clean the inside, wash your car. I know that sounds crazy, but if you come up in a clunker full of junk, they ain't going to hire you. And so, and some businesses require transportation, obviously. Most of them do. You got to get to work somehow. And so, those are things like clothes, haircut, thing. So prepare yourself. And the night before, if you're a person who drinks alcohol or whatever you do, don't do any of that. Be on top of your game the next day and show up early. I tell people, and I don't mean like 15 minutes early, show up 10 minutes early. That right there is amazing positive impact. If you come in at, let's say your interview is at 11 a.m. and you come in at 10:50 and tell the receptionist, I'm here for an interview at 11. They tell the person that's interviewing you, they like that. You showed up early today. A lot of things that employers are looking for are not the things that you think. you think that they're looking for your skills. You want to know what? Most employers are looking for someone who's going to show up on time, be there for 8 hours, do their job, and not be late and have really good attendance. That's what employers really want. And if you are good at attendance, and you can show this in the interview, and the other part's easy. If you already know you have the skills, interviews should be easy for you. But you got to have that other stuff too. I think some people who are really good at what they do think that's all they need to do. Oh, I'm really good at what I do, and that's all I really need to be good at. And it's like, no, there's a lot of other factors. Don't be late. Don't look like a bum. Don't drive a junky car. Stuff like that. Companies don't want those people working for them. They don't want people constantly not showing up to work. So those are pretty basics, I think. I haven't gotten every job I've been interviewed for. I'm sure you haven't either. So, I mean,
Thank you. Changing subjects. You lost 130 pounds, right?
Yeah.
So talk a little about what inspired you to make that change.
Well, number one, when you wake up in the morning, how you feel. You know how your body feels. If you're not feeling well. And I was overweight for 20 years. I mean, at least. I started gaining weight 20 years ago, and I never stopped. And what I first did was change my diet. And I did that like 5 years ago. Now, am I perfect? No. I eat processed foods. But I try to have a diet, a balanced diet, number one, fruits, vegetables, grains, all that mixed together, dairy, meat, protein. And I try to eat whole foods, and I try to cook as much as I can. I say 80% of my diet is whole foods. And to tell you the truth, you'll feel so much better just by changing your diet. Even before I started losing weight, Jason, I felt better just because my diet was better.
Even before you started losing weight, you felt better.
I felt better.
That's huge.
Yeah. And so then that kind of gave me the encouragement. And then I was working at a customer service place, and they were making some changes. They wanted me to move me in a different department. I knew it was coming. I didn't really want to do it. We had a meeting. I said, no, I don't want to move to that department. So they gave me severance, and I just said, screw it. I'm taking 6 months off. I need to take care of this weight problem I have. And I bought my first e-bike, and I just started riding it. And the thing that people don't understand about e-bikes is you can actually get a better workout on an e-bike than you can on a regular bike. And what do I mean by that? Okay.
Yeah.
It's very windy in South Dakota. On a regular bike, if the wind is into your face, you're not going very fast, and you're pedaling like a madman. And the cool thing about e-bikes is there's levels of power. So when I first got it, it had 5 levels. No, it had 9 levels of power. Now I remember this. And I started riding in about, the lower the power, the more you have to pedal. So when I first got it, I was riding in level 4, and I thought I was getting a pretty good workout. Then I realized that level 4 was pretty high. So I just started, month by month, I was cranking that level down. And by the end of 6 months, I was riding everywhere in level 1. And the nice part about it is the bike understands your pedaling cadence. So no matter if there's wind or a small hill, you will keep a constant speed, and you will keep a constant pedaling. And the problem with a non-electric bike in my opinion, is if you're riding it on a windy day, you're not getting that consistent cardio, what I call it. They call it, the electric bike industry calls it low cardio. And they say it's very good for seniors. And so you have a constant pedaling. I mean, on the weekends, I can get on that bike and ride 30 miles and not stop pedaling the entire time. I can't say that about an acoustic bike. I call them acoustic bikes, like electric guitars,
Acoustic bike.
acoustic bikes.
Funny.
Bike on a 30-mile ride, well, I'd be exhausted by the end of it, number one, because it's hard cardio. I mean, when you're pedaling hard like that. And the other thing is, it's not constant. You got hills, you got wind, you got different trails you're going to take. And you're not going to get a constant speed, and you're not going to get a constant workout. So I always tell people, electric bikes are fantastic for cardio and working out and for losing weight. And so that's the thing that always makes me laugh when people say, oh, you're a wimp because you got an electric bike. And I'm like, you know what? I get better exercise on that thing than you ever will on your regular bike. But I have a lot of regular bikes. I ride them all the time. I just don't take them on 30-mile bike rides, They're kind of my little grocery getter bikes, I call them,
This brings up Don, like your pedicab business. First of all, for people who don't know what's a pedicab.
Thank you. Some people don't know what they are. It's a pedicab is basically a newer version of a thing called a rickshaw. And a rickshaw is something over in Asian countries where a guy has these two poles he holds, and he's got a two-seater on behind him with two wheels, and he's your cab. He runs. And they still use them over in like India and Pakistan and stuff. And so a pedicab is an actual tricycle with the seat on the back. And most pedicabs for years had no electric assist. About 10 years ago, they started making them. And that's when I first started getting interested in the electric assist pedicab. But they were very expensive. 10 years ago, to buy an electric pedicab, it would have been $15,000.
Wow, that's hard to make that money up.
Yeah, money when you got to spend 15 grand just to get a unit. And so it's about a third of that now. So I decided that it was time to try it. And I do it downtown Sioux Falls. Works like a regular cab service. I can take cash. I can take card reader, card, Venmo, anything. And so it works just like a regular cab, like old school cab, not an Uber where you do it on your phone and stuff. It's you get in, I give you a ride, and then you pay me. And it's fun because it won't go over 15 miles an hour. So you're getting a nice little ride around downtown. And what a lot of people do is they book me for a half hour to an hour because they want a tour of downtown. The tourists.
Oh, really? Oh.
They're my most popular clients, is the tourists and visitors, which I expected anyway when I started this. The locals don't quite understand it yet. Some of them do, some of them don't. And I've been conversing with the person who owns a pedicab business in Fargo, and he told me he started it 5 years ago, and his first year was pretty dismal. He said, he goes, yeah, I was pretty shell-shocked, but in my first year, it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. But then he said after that, he's busier than he can even imagine. He started out with one cab like I am. He has 6 now. So,
Wow.
yeah. So I just got to stick it out. I am, depending on how I finish this year, I'm still going to do it next year. I kind of decided that I am going to do it. I'm going to get a different unit. I found a nice one, a nice used one that I'm going to get probably. So it's going to be an upgraded version of this cab. But it's fun. I have wireless speakers on there. So if you want to play your own music, you can do that. I can play music for you. I mean, it's not, I think some people who are apprehensive about it think that it's going to be like they're going to fall off, or it's scary, or it's going to go really fast. None of that's true. It's completely safe. I'm insured. I have a background check with the city. I am licensed. And so no worries, you know.
Is it seasonal work? I
Yeah,
imagine.
I'll run it as long as I can. The guy from Fargo told me he runs his through November.
Oh,
And
dude.
he'll do special events in the winter too. He'll do like football games there. And what did he tell? He has an event in February. I mean, he does winter events too. So I'm open to that. I ride my e-bike all year long, so the weather doesn't bother me. Growing up on a farm in South Dakota, it prepares you very well for cold weather. You know, so yeah, I can do whatever. You know, doesn't bother me. I've been thinking about being in the Parade of Lights because I think that
That's cool.
it would be fun to be in the Parade of Lights. It'd be good advertising too. I'm going to be at the Sidewalk Arts Festival tomorrow too, because you know, like 60,000 people show up for that. So, and you know, it's a new thing. I get it. People struggle with new things. I started probably 15 years ago. A friend and I had an artist group called the Midwest Art Collective, and we were around for about 2 years, and we had several shows at different businesses in Sioux Falls. And it was probably at the height of it, there was probably about 25 artists in the group, mostly, you know, visual, painting, photography. But there were some poets that would show up and musicians would show up. But I got to tell you, after 2 years of doing it, it is really hard educating people, businesses and artists, about displaying your work, getting out there and doing those things. And me and my friend actually who started it with me, she suggested it before I did, that we cancel the group, because she's like, Scott, it just seems like we're herding cats. And I was like, yeah, we're herding cats. I'm still friends with a lot of the people that were in the group, you know, like Charles Loon was in the group, and you know, he's a poet. And so I made a lot of connections and friends, but it was difficult. It's difficult to get people with a Midwest mentality. I'm not going to say a Sioux Falls mentality. It's a Midwest mentality, because me and the guy from Fargo have been talking about this, you know, the Midwest mentality about things and trying new things. It's really hard for people to grasp new things. And it's like what we were talking about earlier, Jason, and people trying different jobs. They're scared, you know. And trust me, I get scared trying new things too. You know, the first time I had my first shift as a radio DJ, I was nervous as hell. I was like, okay, I have the training, but am I going to be able to do this? And I started on AM and then switched over to FM. And FM's totally different. FM, you're on the air every 15 minutes, and all you say is it's going to be cloudy out today. Where AM, you're doing news briefs every 15 minutes. You got to pull the wire. I mean, but then once you learn the job, then you start to enjoy it. I think one of my best part-time gigs I ever had was the lead usher at the Pavilion. I met so many celebrities. I can't even begin to tell you. I helped write a joke for Carrot Top. I met Weird Al Yankovic, Bill Cosby. Dan Warwick gave me a kiss. And while Tom Brokaw was standing there laughing at me. I could go on and on about all the celebrities I met there. You know, they're not my friends or anything, but I mean, to meet Bill Cosby, obviously, didn't turn out to be the person we thought he was. But it's pretty amazing sitting and talking to Bill Cosby. I mean, so that was one of the funnest jobs, and it was an enjoyable job because something different every show. You'd have a lot of emergency medical. I don't think a lot of people know that are in the audience because we were so good about the way we would handle them. But there'd be a medical emergency almost every show, and that could be somebody twisting their ankle on the steps, which happened a lot. That's why they changed. That's why they tore all the carpeting. Did you know they tore all the carpeting out of the pavilion because the Pasley carpeting on the stairs were causing people to fall because they couldn't see where the step ended. So they had to. That's why they tore all the carpet out. So people would fall down those stairs a lot, and so we'd have a lot of twisted ankles. One guy broke his arm on the hand railing falling. But we've had strokes, heart attacks. But we were pretty good at managing it. So every time you went into a show, you didn't know what to expect. And sometimes some of the shows, the patrons would just be the worst people, just awful, mean to you and stuff. But for the most part, it was a great place to work. And I actually was going to get promoted before. I worked there for 4 years. First for 4 years it was open. And I was actually getting promoted because my boss was going to be taking on some other duties. So they wanted me to do some of his stuff, like scheduling. And then I was going to be running the shows pretty much as the house supervisor. But one of the board members, who will remain nameless because she's not alive anymore, didn't like me. So I got into it with them and I left. But I didn't want to leave. I got to be honest with you. I liked working there. But the place is very political.
As we get close to the end here of the show, you said when I talked to you before, an artist almost needs to be a bully in terms of getting their work out into the world. What did you mean by that?
What did you say again? I'm sorry.
You told me before, like, an artist almost needs to be a bully.
Yes. I tell this to artists all the time. I meet, and you know this, Jason, because your parents collect art and you've been around it your whole life. It seems like to me, the most youngest and talented artists in this community, they're nice people, and they don't want to upset anybody by asking to show their work. But I tell them all the time, like, you're extremely talented. Your work speaks for itself, but you have to put your foot in the door. And your
work speaks for yourself, but you have to put your foot in the door.
Out there, and you got to be relentless. Just in getting your work out there. And not just posting on Facebook and stuff. I sell most of my stuff online. I do shows here and there. I used to do a lot of shows. I'd probably be in 6-7 shows a year in town, in different places. I really don't do that anymore. And I'll tell you the reason why. It has nothing to do with the fact that I don't want to participate. It has to do with the fact that I hate hauling my art around. And when you do like 1-day shows or 1-week shows, you got to haul your stuff there, put it all up. And then what you don't sell, you got to take it all back down. And, I used to be involved with the art collective, and to tell you the truth, I get invited still, but I don't do it because I don't want to haul all my stuff up to the pavilion's 2nd floor. So it's kind of out of laziness for me. But these younger artists that are very talented and nobody knows who they are, they need to get out there and they need to start telling people, this is my work. This is what I do. I'm good.
Can I share your website with people?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, BettySioux.com. So it's BettyieSioux, like Sue.com. And I do collage, mixed media, that kind of stuff.
And last question. I talk in my business about the power of doing our imperfect best and what it means to me personally as I go for the best I want in my own life and I want to contribute. Then when obstacles come up, mistakes and what have you come up, instead of being stopped by that, I try to learn from that and move again forward. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Scott Ehrisman?
I think you said it the best, Jason. You learn from your imperfections. If something goes wrong in your life or something bad happens, don't look at it as something bad happened to me. Look at it as an opportunity to better yourself.
Hmm.
And don't forget about the mistakes you made in the past. You know, some people say, well, just forget about that. No, it's important to remember the mistakes, because if you remember the mistakes you made, you won't make them again. You know, so yeah, I say, don't, you know, we discussed that we weren't going to talk politics, so I'm not going to talk politics on the show because I follow local politics, but it's kind of like that. You look at local elected government on every level, and they dwell too much on something bad happening, and it's like, no, this is an opportunity for you to fix something and to make the city better. This isn't a bad thing, it's a good thing. You know, it's like the homeless issue we have in downtown. I'll just say this briefly. I look at solving that problem as an opportunity. Other people do not. Other people think they're an issue. They're less than human. They're whatever. And I'm like, no. If Sioux Falls figures out a way to help these people and to get them off the streets, that's a good thing. And don't look at solving the homeless issue as a bad thing, as a black mark on our city. Not at all. This is going on throughout the country. We are not, an island. Homelessness is all over the country. And some communities have figured out how to fix it, some have not. And I think Sioux Falls can figure it out. I don't think we're that dumb that we can't figure it out. I think we can. And I say, look at this as an opportunity. I always look at struggles as an opportunity to do something better.
You always look at struggles as an opportunity to do something better.
Yeah.
So good.
So,
what?
I'm a cynical person, so I see a lot of cynicism and stuff. And so being cynical, I think sometimes is important, is because you have to look at the bad to see the good. You're never going to see the good if you don't look at the bad first. Because how do you know what is good if you don't know what is bad? Does that make sense? If you know bad, how do you know what is good? So, and I think there's good and bad in everybody. I don't think anybody is perfect. And I think God made us that way. I don't think God made us to be perfect individuals. So that's my religion rant for you.
Powerful. Thank you so much, Scott, for your time, for all you do for your community, and for your art, for your creativity, and thanks for being you. And please stay on the line as I end the show, because it takes a minute to upload.
Not a problem.
Cool. And thank you everyone for tuning in. And thanks for thinking. Scott presented so many amazing stories and insights. Thanks for thinking about them. And please tune in again next week for another episode of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. And until then, remember, you are the best. because you are the only one of you in the world. Have a great day and remember to smile.
Thank